Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard here on WPPM in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on your dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each Wednesday at 9 a.m., and you can also watch us on WPPM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, and he is Andrew Lavis. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Lovis. That's pretty
Lovis.
close. That's
Oh,
closer
oh,
than most people get.
okay. Sorry about that. Welcome aboard, Andrew. What you can do is wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if you're watching, that's Andrew Lovis. And I should mention that I met Andrew, I guess, a couple months ago at a studio, at a gym facility. The gym facility is, name of it is,
Asheville personal training.
and Andrew was and is a trainer there, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the fact that Andrew is also involved with a company called Green Moose Fuel. And it's a very unusual company, an avocado-based chocolate mousse designed to boost energy and fuel activity. It's great as a snack or taken before a workout. It contains 5 nutritionally powerful, unrefined ingredients and no junk or filters. What fun is that? No junk? Wow. You know, I
I
want
know.
give me a version with just some junk there. His mission,
Right.
or the company's mission, is to help people move more, feel better, and achieve their goals. And it's interesting because that kind of ties into your personal training stuff as well.
For sure.
When you think about it. So the question is, Andrew. First of all, if I can ask you, you grew up where?
Initially, kind of all over the Northeast. We kind of moved around as a family, but primarily in Sumter, South Carolina. So flat, hot, humid, all that good stuff.
And when you were growing up in South Carolina, did you always know you wanted to be, I guess, two things, a personal trainer and also an entrepreneur? Was that your goal as a kid?
Not really. This kind of evolved organically as I kind of got into the workforce. We moved up to Asheville about 8 years ago, and uh, primarily because my wife got into grad school up here. And so I was just kind of working to kind of bridge the gap and kind of provide for us while she was in school. And personal training just kind of fell in my lap through a family friend. And I've always been passionate about health and wellness for myself personally. And I think that passion kind of led to trying to help other people kind of achieve that same just level of quality of life and feeling good, in their body and about themselves. And so
Now,
that's kind of what led me.
now how long have you been a personal trainer?
So I've been a personal trainer for roughly 6 years now. And I kind of focus primarily on pain management and getting people back to play. And with, my favorite clientele being outdoor athletes who are either recovering or kind of preventing injury.
Okay, so then you start out in this area, at least as a personal trainer, but then all of a sudden you got the idea, or talk about how you got the idea to also all of a sudden start becoming this entrepreneur and this inventor of this new product. What was the idea behind that?
Yeah. So this again kind of fell in my lap. One of my passions is getting outside in any capacity possible. I just love it. So, biking, trail running, paddling, if there's an outdoor sport out there and I have the ability, or the equipment, chances are I'm doing it. And so I'd always been looking for kind of healthy options that digested well and kind of gave me lots of energy. And so my sister, on some random family visit when we were home, made this stuff off of some health food bloggers website. And I was like, man, that stuff is awesome. And I felt like I could just like run a marathon afterwards. I felt great. And so I was like, this would be great stuff to pack on rides. And so I started making it and putting in those little tiny, half Ziploc bags, like the snack bags, and kind of biting the end off and having it in the middle of my ride. And I'd been doing that for a couple months. And I was like, I wonder, if anybody's selling this stuff, because the majority of the stuff on the shelf that I was taking, I would just have either negative GI experiences with it, or it just, something about the ingredients of, having two preservatives and just being primarily made out of glucose syrup, and nothing else. I wanted something that was a little bit more preferable for like term health too. And so this stuff seemed to fit the bill. And so after a couple months of making it, we did some market research and we decided to go in business and just kind of investigate further about packaging it.
And talk a little bit about that process, because that must have been something new for you too. Like when you went to school, did you study anything in particular?
So I majored in psychology, which is incredibly helpful for personal training, but not
I was
as helpful for entrepreneur. Well, arguably for general entrepreneurship, but not in the food industry. In terms of launching a product. So there was a lot we had to do. I would say our first 2 years were a lot of learning. There's a lot of finding the right people. I called a lot of universities. We did a lot of tests. It was a lot of learning in a very short amount of time because there's a lot you got to figure out and make sure that it's up to standard.
Well, talk about the process then. So you had this idea, you kind of tested it with yourself and with friends and whatnot, and you came up with the idea that, hey, this might be something people want to eventually buy.
Sure.
And so where'd you go from taking that idea to the point where you had to package it, come up, name for it, all that good stuff? How'd that take place?
So, it was, I was pretty excited about it. So I worked kind of as fast as I could while I was working full time, as a personal trainer. And I was also working in a staff at a gym. So, during kind of the slower times at the gym, I would do a ton of research. I would compile lists of people to call. I had a feeling that it was generally about finding the right people to ask questions. And so fortunately, I had a lot of great connections through the Cliffs that were able to point me in the direction. But a lot of it was just, cold calling universities, their health food science department, packaging specialists. And then, we kind of did a ton of research on finding a package. And initially we packaged it in like coffee or like cannabis packaging because it had an air barrier because, avocados oxidize. And so we tested that out for a while. We would, spend hours just throwing labels on these test packages. And, basically every step along the way, there wasn't anybody to really necessarily hold our hand or answer all the questions. But, we did as much research as we possibly could and tried to find the right people. But going from, basically the coffee packaging to what we have now currently, which is kind of a squeeze gel pack.
Well,
This
show it
was
again too, because it's a really cool
okay.
package. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, a little bit about the package, just real quick. I don't mean to derail, but there's actually a tear tab on the bottom if you want to squeeze it out and kind of push it like a push pop, and then you can tear the top tab if you would like to kind of enjoy it thawed, which is kind of, what most people will end up doing. But yeah, I would say it was just, none of us are the smartest, most entrepreneurially minded people. Were just very good at persevering and asking questions until, we get the answer.
And by the way, feel free to give a shout out to some people, have helped you. For example, I saw that you're a co-owner of this company. Who's your other co-owner?
So the other owner is my father. He has funded the whole thing privately, and so that means the world to me. Having that backing, having that support, and he's incredibly excited about it. He wants to be a full-time employee of the company. When it gets to that point.
And by the way, his name is what?
David Lovice.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's an MD in Sumter and also is very passionate about health and wellness as well.
okay, so the two of you working on this. Then you mentioned too that you were just running around trying to get some help on this. And so, who are some of the schools or the other people who have helped you along the way? If you care to
I
mention
would,
any names.
yeah, for sure. And I should mention, two people that have been super instrumental in our company as well. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without them. Is Ryan and Lauren. They were both, employees at the Cliffs with me, who came alongside and kind of, saw the vision and were really excited about it too. And they've been awesome as well. Ryan Kessinger and Lauren Brown.
Now,
Um,
when you talk about the vision too, I'm just curious. So this whole thing is avocado based, right? Or
yep.
it's how do you come up with the avocado?
Well, I'd always really liked the avocado for beneficial fats and kind of slowing down digestion a little bit, but not so much to create like kind of digestive issues. I've always been kind of a huge fan of pureed foods for kind of athletic performance. I think they're incredibly easy to digest. Avocado being, a quote unquote superfood as it is, we thought was kind of a perfect base because of its fat content. It freezes in such a way that it's not icy or hard. It's actually, quite an enjoyable, thing to eat frozen. And so there was that reason. And, this recipe that we have is kind of based off of a Brazilian dessert. And so it's based loosely off of Brazilian dessert. But I can't really take credit for it. All recipes are adapted from somewhere, but I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we don't, mention they were the ones to come up with it first. We're one of the only countries to use avocados for savory uses primarily, because it is a fruit. Many countries use it as a sweet item. And so most people hear like avocado-based chocolate mousse, that sounds insane and not tasty. But it's, around the world, like avocados paired with sweet the majority of the time.
And so talk about what happens. So somebody buys a package of this, right? And you and I have to share a package with me. And then talk about what they're supposed to do with it. Do they freeze it? Do they put it in the refrigerator? And talk about how they even eat it or consume it.
Sure. Yeah. So that's a great question. And we spend a lot of time clarifying that because it is such a new product. And since we don't have any preservatives in it,
Cool.
Real food should go bad. Like that's a thing. Like, you've seen I'm sure the picture of the McDonald's burger that's been sitting in the dresser drawer for 2 years. It looks the exact same. There's something deeply wrong with that. And so, real food does go bad. So basically when you buy a green mousse pack, it may thaw out. We basically store them frozen because they last a year like that. They hold their best quality like that. So you buy it. Ideally, you throw it in your freezer later that day. It's okay if it thaws out. They last 7 to 10 days in the fridge or a year in refrigeration. And essentially when you're ready to use it, you throw it in your pack, your bag, pocket, and it's essentially good for the day. And we tell people, whatever you do with real food, do with this. So if you left, let's say a sandwich in your car for 9 hours in the summer, baking in the heat, probably not good. Same thing with this. But, on a colder day, it might be good for, several days outside. So we tell people to use common sense, but refrigerate it for storage.
Okay. And so after I take it out for a hike or some other outdoor activity, I open it and then you just drink it at that point in time?
That's correct. Yeah, there's no pre-mixing necessary. That's the beauty of pre-packaged food. And that kind of ties into our mission is, basically with our difficulty in finding, products that were both GI friendly, had fantastic ingredients, we're going to support both short-term performance and long-term health. We just weren't able to find a ton of that on the market, and this product does that. And so basically, it's ready to go as is, and it's got superfoods loaded with prebiotics, probiotics, all the good stuff, and it's convenient, healthy fuel.
Who should be consuming this?
So really anybody, and this is part of our difficulty, in finding a target market is like kids love it. We found out that middle-aged women really love it. Like they're one of our primary buyers. We have a pretty diverse use for this. Sometimes I'll use it as a snack personally. Sometimes I'll use it like today. I went and rode, a pretty big mountain bike loop out in Brevard, and about an hour, 15 minutes in, I took down one of the big packs, and it sustained me fantastically through the ride. So, everybody from athletes to just people looking for a healthy snack or like a healthy indulgence, for dessert, can consume it.
How do you know what to put into it? In other words, in terms of the ingredients, and then talk about also the process that you also have to get certain approvals, right, to be able to sell it.
That's correct. Yeah. So, initially we asked a bunch of questions about, kind of the approval and everything like that. And, when you're really small and you're not selling a ton of volume, the powers that be just general, kind of common sense with packaging and processing kind of apply. We went to NC State and got basically their list of regulations that apply to our product. And really, it's a matter of just making sure everything's clean. A lot of produce out there is not necessarily clean when it comes into the States. So, we sanitize both, the outside of the avocado, and we scrub down, our facility to make sure it kind of meets up with the state regulations about processing. So that was a lot of just kind of learning from the Department of Health, learning from the Department of Ag, and several people that were instrumental. Like Blue Ridge Food Ventures was awesome in making sure that we were up to date with those approvals. And then when it came down to testing our product, my wife was very, very kind early in the beginning, because we didn't have a test kitchen or a facility. So I was doing a lot of this in our 3-bedroom house, which was not a large space. And so there'd be avocado kind of sprayed on the wall. This was before we were selling. But I was testing out several different sweeteners, several different brands of our ingredients. And eventually we just found that, per ounce, the ingredients that we went with seemed to have the most nutrition that we could possibly pack into the product. Tasted great, froze fantastically, not in a way that, basically made it hard or like icy to eat. We really lucked out with the ingredients, because we don't need any emulsifiers. We don't need any preservatives. We really need nothing. It freezes fantastically. It thaws out in the same exact consistency. It doesn't separate. And this was a lot of testing, but also a lot of luck on our part.
This must have also been quite a learning curve on your part, from having been a personal trainer with no background per se in foods to all of a sudden have to become the world's greatest expert on 27 different areas, including marketing. That's a lot of learning had to take place, or still is.
Definitely. And, I fortunately have had a lot of help from family members who are very helpful. We have a family member that's in the food industry that was able to kind of give us some guidance. But with every food product, it's so different. And so the way you market it, the way you make it, the channels that you're going to sell it in, it is a very steep learning curve. But I would encourage anybody, with a vision that's passionate about this kind of thing, to learn more, obviously, and do your due diligence on your research and find out what it'll take. But it's also an extremely rewarding line of work. So it's weird to even call it work, because it's definitely a passion for us.
Now talk about the manufacturing, so that you initially you were making it in your house there, and you had three bedrooms. Are you still making it in your house now, or where are you making it?
No, we moved to Blue Ridge Food Ventures, which is a shared test kitchen and kind of a co-packing type facility that's kind of a branch of AB Tech. Right. And they are a fantastic facility. I would highly recommend anybody looking to go into the food industry to in the Asheville area to talk to them. So we manufactured there. Michael McDonald up there kind of does the intakes, and he was incredibly helpful in finding us the right equipment to package this stuff in, and just kind of helping us with a lot of aspects of the production. He was instrumental. I don't even know if we honestly could have made it work unless we met him. So I'm incredibly grateful for him. Later, we kind of, through a connection at the Cliffs, were invited to basically produce at the Mountain Play Lodge. They have a commercial kitchen that's the nicest kitchen I've ever been in. I mean, the place is immaculate. And we produce basically when they're not there. And they've been gracious enough and just awesome enough to let us produce there. And that's where we produce and store some product to this day.
Now, so you have it produced. How much of the product do you have in an inventory, or is there a set amount, or based on orders? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we base it on orders. We're kind of a seasonal business, in a way. During the summer months, I'd say, late fall kind of late spring to late fall would be kind of our time when we see the most usage, because that's when people are going outside. That's when people want cold products. And so, being a small business and especially after COVID, we tried to keep our inventory kind of as limited as possible. But at any given time, we have, 1,000 to 2,000 units on hand in several of our big freezers that we have. That will change soon. We're going to need a lot more because we've got some kind of exciting things that we're looking to roll out soon. We're kind of keeping it hush hush, but we're moving into a bigger retail space and potentially rebranding, to kind of cover a little bit more broadly who our consumers are.
Now, right now, you've told me there are two sizes to this product. Explain the difference, if you would.
Yep, that's right. So I've got both of them here. Basically, we have a large size, which is a 3-ounce size. This has 180 calories. It's going to be designed to kind of fill you up pretty full without kind of weighing you down. It's more for like a backcountry adventure, or, if you're putting in kind of a bigger effort, or if it's going to be a while before you kind of eat. And then we've got a 1-ounce size that we actually, it's the same exact base, but we put Dynamite Roasters espresso powder, which Dynamite Roasters, I'll throw this out there, it's the best coffee in town. Everyone I talk to that knows Dynamite usually agrees, at least in my humble opinion. But this is more for basically a smaller serving size, a smaller individual who has less caloric need, or somebody who just needs something during the workout. So we like to market this as kind of a bigger pre-workout, or like a bigger backcountry, kind of like I need a lot of calories. And this is more for just a quick kind of evening workout, or, in between, the beginning and the end of the workout.
Now, I've always wondered, and this I guess was part of your learning process, about how do you figure out calories, for example. You said, it had 180 calories. Blue Ridge helped you figure that out, or how do you make that determination?
Yeah, so when we were trying to figure out the ounce size, that's an interesting question. Like initially, because of my ignorance, I was like, this is how much I eat. This is how much most people should eat. As we got into our official packaging, we realized we needed to research comparable products. And we also needed to ask people, how much do they want? Because I think that's kind of a big mistake that we made early on, was just making a lot of assumptions and not asking a lot of questions. And I think that's something we've gotten a lot better at, in every aspect of business, is asking questions. And, that's kind of why we eventually came out with the 1-ounce size, was because we had a lot of feedback of people saying, I love it, but I would love to see it, in a smaller serving size. And so, we listened to that feedback, and we're aiming to deliver more of those in the near future as well.
So I was asking too, though, and I always wondered how that's done in terms of, so you told me there are 180 calories in the 3-ounce package. Then you also put down, I guess there are certain nutrients or other things you have to put down in the packaging. How do you determine that stuff? Or somebody helps you figure that out?
Yeah, so when it comes to nutrition labels, you can go online and just like type in a template and go with it. But the problem with that, and the danger with that, is they change these templates frequently. Like the new one just came out, and there's a cutoff date on how, as soon as everybody kind of gets to this date, they have to have this new nutrition label, based on the federal and state guidelines. So we didn't want to really mess around with trying to do it ourselves, because it's an incredibly large investment for a small business to buy packaging, in a way that it's affordable. And so when you're doing a run of, 10 to 30,000 packages, you really want to make sure that your nutrition label is good. Right. So we went through Anne at NC State, who's part of their food science program. And she basically put together that label for us, updated it for us, and sent a file that could be used by a graphic designer to be put on the package. And so it was incredibly helpful.
How cool is that? If people want to buy this product now, for example, without giving away your secrets of where you're going to go with it in the future, how do you find it?
So currently, there are a list of retailers on our website. It's greenmoosefuel.com. And basically, if you look up the where to buy, you can find it in several grocers, gyms, coffee shops around town. The easiest way, if you love it, and you want to buy it, in packages of 12 or more, which is definitely the most affordable way to do it. You can go onto our website and basically purchase direct, and we can either ship if it's outside of our delivery radius, which is on the site. We can ship for a flat rate, or we can deliver for free, usually within 2 to 3 days of ordering in the local area.
If you could mention the website, if you would, please.
Yeah, it's greenmoosefuel.com. So green like the color, moose like the animal, and fuel like what you put in your car.
And how
.com.
do you come? The first time I saw the name, I thought it was pretty cool. How do you come up with that name?
Yeah, so we didn't realize initially it's actually a tongue twister, and so most people saying it like have a hard time for the first time. So that is one of my regrets. But basically, the reason behind it's kind of cool. So green, like the
Right.
color because that's the color of an avocado. Mousse because it is a chocolate mousse, and fuel because that's kind of what it's designed to do for you. And so yeah, so it's basically kind of an illusion. Or alludes to the chocolate mousse being green.
So I'm trying to say green. So what is it? If you try to say it 25 times quickly, it's tough. Green moose. Is that
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Say it many times.
That's right.
Let me put you on the spot a little bit in terms of, so it says avocado-based chocolate mousse. Down the road, and you don't have to give the specifics, but are you working on other flavors, ideas in terms of this fuel type product?
Definitely. We want to make a pretty broad and kind of rich product line of things that we can kind of offer to help boost performance. We also want to kind of address the healthy snack crowd and the healthy dessert crowd. I think our focus is always going to be on providing something that delivers a lot of nutrition. And we never want to compromise, on what we put in it because we want people to be able to trust our name, our brand, and kind of what we believe is important. But yeah, we have several ideas, as far as just, recovery aids, potentially supplements, if that's something we can do. And we just want to deliver high quality nutrition, and anything that falls within that we can do feasibly, we'll do.
Will it always be avocado based, or might you use other products, other food products as well?
Yeah, we may branch out and use other food products as well. We're definitely not opposed to that. Fortunately, there are a lot of foods out there that work with a lot of people's bodies and provide good, solid nutrition. And there's really in the grand scheme of things, not that many things that are truly bad for you. I think it's a lot easier to find good things to use than not if you're looking in the right places.
And I think the key is, as you guys have demonstrated, is to also have it taste good as well. So that's kind of like, where'd you come up with the idea of the chocolate mousse flavor?
So yeah, so basically, as I mentioned, like it was based off that Brazilian dessert, but they were using cocoa, and it was a milk product as well. It was almost like an ice cream. But we found that the avocado flavor is actually kind of strong by itself. Like we actually tried a vanilla version, and to me, it was terrible. I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, some people may really like it, but basically, unless the avocado was cut with something, we found that it really needed and lended itself to, a strong kind of flavor profile. And cacao, raw organic cacao, has a very strong flavor. And so, it took a while to kind of dial in how much we like to put in that. The vanilla that we use is also incredibly high quality and has a very strong flavor as well. And so we wanted really rich, vibrant flavors, but we didn't want it to be super vegetal, with avocado. So that's kind of the reason for the cacao.
And Andrew, Lovice, I'll have you one more time. First of all, show the packages, if you would, of
Sure.
the individual size and the 3-ounce size of green mousse fuel. And again, Andrew, if folks want to find out more about it or about you, best bet is to do what?
Yep. So they can either email me directly at andrew@greenmoosefuel.com, or check out our website at greenmoosefuel.com. And we're also on social media and Facebook. So Green Moose Fuel is our handle.
And we'll mention one other thing in terms of getting in touch with you. If folks want to speak to you about some of your personal training, you want to just talk about that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So, things are pretty busy these days. Things went through a lull with just personal training in general. But yeah, Asheville Personal Training is a fantastic studio that's open to the public. Michelle is the owner over there, and she's a fantastic person. Love working for Michelle. But Asheville Personal Training's website is ashevillepersonaltraining.com. So it's super easy. It's the first thing when you Google it pops up, which is brilliant on Michelle's part. And yeah, definitely there's a intake form on there and everything like that. And if you're looking for a personal trainer, you won't find a better studio than that one in town.
Okay, great. I'd like to thank you, Andrew, for being my guest this first half hour on the Blaine's World Show. And I hope to bump into you sometime in the near future. We'll talk again.
Definitely.
Okay.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Great. So as Andrew kind of works his way out of the studio, I'm going to see if I can make him disappear, or he disappear there. And as we wait for our second guest to come on board, let's see if I can bring him in. And there he is. And I'll be with you 1 second, Tally. I'd like to mention that you're watching the Blaine's World Show here on WPVM. And WPVM's mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to have their voice heard on live radio and here on Facebook Live. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce my second guest, and he is Blake Talley, also known as Talley. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, super. And welcome aboard, Talley. And he's a talented filmmaker, musician, actor. And feel free to wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. Talley.
Hey,
great.
everybody.
Okay. Talley, I should mention, is a filmmaker, musician, actor from Denver, Colorado. He moved to Asheville in July 2020. He trained in broadcast news television at age 18 and got his degree in writing, directing for the screen at the internationally acclaimed Colorado Film School. Has continued to make short films, records, and perform in live theater ever since. Most recently, he's producing 3 albums as Talley that synchronize the films he has made, which he projects behind him live at shows. Very cool, Talley. Question.
Yeah.
You grew up, in out west? Did you grow up
Yeah,
in
I grew up in West Texas, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Oklahoma and West Texas, kind of the
And when you
middle
were a
of
little
nowhere.
kid growing up in Oklahoma and West Texas, did you always know you wanted to be this musician / filmmaker / entertainment guy?
Yeah, I think starting at age 11 that I wanted to make movies and music and act. Yeah, for sure.
What brought that out at 11?
It was like a weird epiphany. I grew up thinking that everybody knew what they wanted to do
Right.
from when they were little, because I just knew, and a light went off, and I think I was in my bedroom in the middle of nowhere, Pampa, Texas, reading a book on movies or something. And I just knew that's me. That's what I want to do.
To make movies. So what was the very first movie you ever made? So you started out by making short films?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I just moved to another house, and we went through some boxes and found some old VHS tapes, and I found the first movie I ever made.
How cool is that? Oh.
Yeah. I was 13. I didn't know I had this, and it was my birthday. I was actually incidentally, Colorado, in Gunnison, Colorado. My dad had given me a camera, one of those old handy cams, like the 8mm tape handy cams, and it's hilarious.
Did you get to see so you got to see it?
Yeah, we found an old VCR at Goodwill for $7, and we opened it up and cleaned the heads. We had to learn how to clean it to get it to work, but we got it working, and my girlfriend was dying laughing. I mean, dying. It's so funny and bad.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you mentioned also you're an actor, and I don't know, have you acted in anything yet in the Asheville area in terms of theater at all?
Almost. I auditioned for a show, and I got cast, and I had to turn it down. It was a local production of Clue.
Oh, I ended up. Oh, they did a great job with it. Did you get to see it?
Oh, that's what I heard. I didn't get to see it. I wanted to see it so bad. It was a crazy season. That's why I had to turn it down. But I was really honored to be cast in that.
Oh, I would love to have seen you in it, because one of the things, as you get to know me, I'm a real theater fan. I love movies as well. I have this great idea, and I could just see you doing it, Talley. I wanted everybody to do their very first role, in terms of a fundraiser for ACT, for example, some local theater, that you do the very first thing you ever did on stage, and you recreate it, these many years afterwards. Have you ever been on stage also, theater?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
lots of theater.
Okay, look forward to seeing it in that sometime.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so sorry, Clue, you would have been great in. I think they really did a good job.
I love Clue.
You started out in this 13-year-old, I love it, making little independent films, and I can't believe
if you want to call it that. They were home videos back then.
Yeah, how long was it?
Oh gosh, I was making movies with my friends till I was 18 when I finally got my first job.
But this first one, how long was the movie?
Oh, it's like a series of terrible little movies on a whole tape. We filmed all day, and I was editing in the can, as you say, just like cutting and then resetting and editing with the tape, just straight to VHS. Probably that first one's probably 3 minutes long or
How
something.
cool
But
was that though?
there's like 45 minutes of just us making ridiculous movies
Well, I
that
won't put
day.
you on the spot and then prepare you for it. But next time you're having the show, we'll have to have you show that.
No, you won't.
You don't want to do it. So, okay, so you did that through 18. What made you get serious about this?
Um, well, I wanted to do it professionally. So when I was 18, I got a job in news television, which was crazy. So I was doing that for a couple years, a year and a half to a couple years. That was like trial by fire. I was by far the youngest person there, and we're talking back in the day when you had the giant, giant shoulder cams and running around West Texas interviewing people and filming car crashes and some homicide shoots and some massive blizzards and tornadoes and just wild stuff. And on call, I was on call during the week, so they could call me. They gave us a cell phone in a car, and they could call me at like 3 in the morning, and they Tally, get down to I-40. There's an 80 car pileup. It's national news, and drive my little Jeep Liberty Channel 7, Pro News Channel 7 Jeep Liberty in the blizzard and get out and start filming pretty serious stuff. So it was definitely an adult's job for a kid. It was intense.
Well, the nice thing about that, though, you didn't have to join a gym either because you got all the exercise just carrying that
That's
around.
right. That's
So,
Oh man, yeah. I actually had back problems for a while because of it.
oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. You're a kid 18 doing this. Was this before or after you went to film school?
This was before. I did that for a year and a half, saved up enough money to buy a camera, a car, and a ticket to Europe. I went to Europe for 3 or 4 months and with my new camera, filmed everything, and came back and started freelancing until I could save up enough to move to film school, go to film school somewhere.
And so what made you want to go to film school?
I've wanted to go to film school since I was little. I think it was probably because I read in a book somewhere that Steven Spielberg didn't go to film school, and he saw George Lucas's film school short, THX, and it inspired him. And so I was like, where did George Lucas go to film school? And turns out he went to UCLA, or no, USC, which is a very different thing now. But he was in there when it was kind of early in the 70s, and so or 60s. So yeah, I was just inspired by all my favorite filmmakers growing up and wanted to study it. And it's the best decision I made in my life, was going to Colorado Film School in particular.
So talk about then you went to Colorado Film School. Then how did it get you from there to sort of where you are even now?
Well, I could have gone anywhere. I was looking at a lot of film schools. I got accepted to a lot across the country, but something about Colorado Film School blew me out of the water. Just the program, the faculty, where it was in particular at that time. That was like 2010. Very different now, but it was perfect at that time. I always wanted to live in Colorado. It's where I made my first little movie. And so when I was looking for schools, I just Googled Colorado and film schools, and Colorado Film School showed up. And the first intro video was actually a video of Irvin Kershner, the director of The Empire Strikes Back, going through the school with the dean of the school at the time, and just said, like, looked at the camera and said, "This is the best equipped film school in the country. This blows everybody away." So I drove there and toured it, and I was sold. I mean, I was sold. And I had the most amazing, I went for 5 years actually. I finished my degree and then stayed on for another year to get more of a grasp on screenwriting. And so I just could not have had a better experience there. It was incredible. And I think I got in right at the right pocket. Like my class, it was just like a perfect time for that school.
So that took you through, I guess, the 2015, 2016, or when did it take you through?
Yeah, that's right. I think I finished up at around 2015, 2014, 2015. Yeah.
So how'd you get to Asheville?
Oh man, if you had told me 2 years ago I'd be here, I would not have believed you. It was I think it was COVID, and it was a lot of different things. I was performing live with my music kind of all over Denver, and I was playing at bars and playing at restaurants and playing at festivals, and I got COVID really bad right away, like February of 2020, and didn't really know what it was, but figured out pretty quickly that it was COVID. And I had gotten it at the last live show I played. There was an outbreak, it turns out, at that bar. And it sort of, I think a lot of people have this story, but it sort of it forced me to kind of reset. I had it for 14 days. I had it bad. Back then, everybody thought you're definitely going to die. And people were really freaking out about it. And I did have some rough days there, where I couldn't crawl out of bed. But once I finally beat it, I really had some time to reflect and go, what am I doing? What do I really want to do? And I had just lost the terrible day job I had, and kind of had an opportunity to figure out what's next. And then my lease ended at the same time. So it was like COVID, losing my job, and my lease ended. And I was just looking around Denver, like, where am I going to live? And if anybody knows anything about Denver, if you think Asheville is expensive, don't even. I mean, Denver's crazy in terms of renting and the housing market. So single guy trying to find a place there was tough. And I finally was like, where do I want to live? And then I went, where do I really want to live? And I had visited Asheville because of I was dating a girl who was travel nursing, and she came through Denver, and I met her on my birthday and had a big party. Over 100 people came through, which ended up, I didn't realize in retrospect, being kind of my goodbye to all of my Denver people. So I was dating her, and she took a travel nursing gig after Denver in Asheville. And I visited her, and I fell in love with the place, and decided to move here in the hopes that she'd stick around and not move on to another city. And I got lucky, and here we are.
Oh, very nice. Well,
Yeah.
glad you're in Nashville, or we won't be speaking now, perhaps.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much.
It's a great city.
That's so beautiful.
But talk about then how you uprooted from Denver to Asheville, and talk about the two things you do, because one of the things I find interesting about you, you're not only this film guy, but you're also a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing now? Let's take both fields. So in Asheville, in terms of film, what are you working on now from a film standpoint?
Well, when I moved here, the first guy I met at a coffee shop, Steve Weiss, shout out to him.
I know Steve. He was just on the show a couple weeks ago.
Okay, that's the connection. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We met at a coffee shop, that double-decker coffee shop downtown.
Right, yeah.
And outside, of course, it was COVID, and we were wearing masks. And yeah, he basically gave me a job that's I'm still working on right now. It's directing and editing, like an 11-hour after editing, sort of biographical piece for this for this guy's dad, for this 85-year-old man who has just this incredible life. And again, very ironically, it was in Colorado. So we flew together, me and Steve, to stay at this guy's place in Colorado for a week, do all the filming, and I've been editing it. It's still a year later.
No, it's going to be not quite 11 hours when you finish it?
It's going to be 11 hours when I finish it.
Are you really? Oh,
finished. That's why it's taken me so long.
That's
but it's not for the public. It's just for this family.
Yeah, but even 11 hours for the family, it's...
Oh, man. It's a lot. It's like 55 videos, and 4 of them are his life story in hour-and-a-half long segments. Fascinating person.
Oh, very cool. Well, look forward to hearing more about that, too. But so that's a project you're currently working on. In addition, talk a little bit about the fact that you also mentioned you're a musician, too. Mm-hmm. And when did you start becoming a musician?
Well, I've been making music and playing since I was little. I think the first thing I played was the piano when I was probably, very, very little, 4 or 5. But I did music lessons as a kid, vocal lessons, lots of live theater and training growing up, and that kind of played into it. Lots of musicals, and then started playing in bands in high school, and one got pretty popular, and we did a little tour, and we put out a couple records. One was really good record that we did in studio. It took us a couple years, and then when I moved to Denver, I kind of got back together with that band for a little bit. They actually moved to Denver. We kind of tried to start again, worked on it for a year, worked on a whole new record. And then that band fell apart. One of the guys in it just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And so I went on solo and took most of those songs, and just went by Talley, which everybody kind of calls me. So that band was called Torgo, but I've been making music as Talley since about 2017 or so, I think, and been working on a lot of music. And so when I play live, I actually incorporate cinematic elements into the music. So I make these movies that are sort of cinematic montages of a lot of great films that I love, you know, and piece them all together and edit them and then project them behind me and synchronize it to the music. So some of it's movies I've made myself, a lot of it's just sort of great classics, and cut them all together, and it's a pretty cool experience. It's sort of an immersive, I call it a cinemusical experience.
What kind of music do you play?
It's like indie retro. It's kind of nostalgic, cinematic, sort of a mix of 70s prog, like Yes, and Styx, if you will, and then like 60s, like the Beach Boys, 60s kind of doo-wop pop, and a lot of 80s new wave stuff, like the Cars meets modern bands like the Strokes or the Walkmen. So it's kind of a mishmash of all that, but a lot of nods to the to older stuff. Of course, my music has been changing over the past couple of years, and I'm using a lot more sampling now, sampling a lot of old movies and doing a lot more electronic stuff.
Well, let me ask you, Tally, you and I talked off the air, but the fact that we won't necessarily go through all your music, but can you give us a brief sample of kind of what it sounds and looks like?
Yeah, I've got a little live thing of me right before COVID hit here in Denver. This was what it looked like live. The video behind me is not one of my edited videos. I just threw up like the Never Ending Story or something in the background, but I'll play a minute or two of one of these.
Okay.
Let's do this. Is that working?
Yeah. No. There you go.
They said it spreads from within. The man of sin. We try to search and find and look inside until we realize we all will rise. Oh, we're leaving. We can't stay. Some may come, some may go. I said another one will love and lead it like before. Some will stay, some will go. I said you're never gonna find us standing at the door. Some may come, some may go. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Some will stay, some will go. Whoa, whoa.
There's a little sample there.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Cool.
Get back to the screen.
Yeah, let's get that back on.
Okay.
Here, I've stopped sharing.
Okay.
My apologies.
No, not all this. Great. Just minimize
Back
it
to
if you
meeting.
can. So,
Okay, cool.
very enjoyed that a lot.
Pause share. Okay, there we go. Is that working now?
Okay. No, I still got the YouTube. Get that off the screen if you can. I'm viewing your screen.
Got
There
it.
you go.
Got
Thanks.
it. My bad.
Okay. Hey, that was so cool. Let me ask you. So you wrote that?
Yeah, yeah.
How many songs have you written?
Oh man, I honestly think over 100. If you count the last band, I was in a couple bands before this, but as Tally, probably about 50. And the actual production of a record, part of it is kind of difficult. So I've been postponing that. And while postponing actually putting it out, I've released some stuff on Spotify, but putting out the full record, I ended up writing about 50 songs. I've got enough for about 3 records. And so 2022, I'll be releasing kind of back to back, quite a few of them. I hope to do at least 2 of them in 2022, plus an instrumental kind of dance record as well. So the artwork is kind of a throwback to those old bands like ELO and Rush and Yes, you know, those 70s kind of progressive bands. And that's kind of the sound and the feel. You saw the synthesizer I was playing there. And I'm just going to do the old, like, I guess Toto did that, you know, Toto 1, Toto 2, Toto 3. So I think I'm going to do that.
Tally 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think so.
Keep the show in mind, because when you're ready to release it, we'll do another show and just releasing of that, you know, album or something. You know,
Wonderful.
If you want. It'd be a lot of fun to do. Let me
Sounds
ask you
good.
this. I'm always amazed with songwriters. Do you write every day, or do you sit down? Do you have a set routine when you're going to write songs?
No, I should. And really, my advice is not to wait for inspiration. It should be like a job. If you just sit down and do it, it'll come. But I dream songs and I wake up and record them sometimes. I just start playing with a part on the keyboard or the guitar and a song will come, or I'll have a lyric in my head or a melody. The best ones are the ones that come out in one sitting, like one afternoon or one early morning or late night. But the ones that are tough can take years sometimes.
You raise a good point. And some people tell me that there are, I guess, two ways to do this. You can either just do it when you feel like it, or some people get up every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning and write for 2 hours or whatnot. And also, as you said, just kind of force yourself into it, because something will come out, I guess, eventually.
Yeah, inspiration is a bit of a myth. I mean, we are inspired, but you can't rely on it. You can't rely on it. I am working on discipline. If I had more discipline, I think I'd be a lot further right now than but I'm working on it, you know?
Well,
there's time.
Yet I'm kind of blown away by just speaking to you, in that you do like about, it seems, 27 different things simultaneously, you know, and
yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but out of all the things you do you have a favorite thing you do? In other words, is it the writing the music? Is it the performing? Is it the filmmaking? Probably other things. Do you have a favorite thing?
I love making movies. I miss acting. It's such a rush. I haven't done it in a couple of years. That's just such an immediate gratification rush, especially in front of a live audience. But I probably am definitely filmmaking is my favorite thing. I also I make the music to my movies, so I get to incorporate that in it as well. And sometimes I'll act in them, but I think my strengths are in directing and writing. I hate editing. I do it all the time, but I hate it.
So I was going to ask you, some people, at least with stage, ask if they direct and if they act, which they prefer. And most people say they actually prefer the directing to the acting. Do you have a preference? Would you rather act or direct?
Yeah, the directing. I mean, I got into acting as a kid because I wanted to be a director, and there wasn't like anything film related in Amarillo, Texas. So
Right.
The closest I could do was kind of study the directors I was working with and learn how acting was. But I fell in love with acting. I got the bug. But yeah, I'm a director at heart for sure.
Because somebody once told me the reason they like directing more, especially on stage, rather than acting, is they don't have to memorize everything.
Yeah, yeah, that can be tough.
It can be. So in terms of stuff you're working on, this massive 11-hour project is quite something.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have any other film projects you're working on?
Well, apart from some music videos I'm doing for my own music, which I'm excited about, I've got a film that I filmed a sizzle reel in film school that I kind of put away, and I recently pulled it back out, and I'm working on the screenplay, and it's a sci-fi, a very cool kind of adventure sci-fi, kind of in the vein of Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Contact, if you remember Contact from the 90s, sort of like those movies. I had this idea and filmed this thing. I had the idea when I was like 13, and then I brought it out in film school, sort of just for a grade, a project. And then it kind of snowballed, and I did all this before Stranger Things and Interstellar and all of that. So when Interstellar came out, I was like, shoot, that's kind of like my movie. So I changed it a bit. Stranger Things came out. That was 100% the aesthetic that I was going for. But that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I pulled that one back out. I actually have, I can actually play a minute or two of that if you want to see it.
Oh, yeah, I'd love
it's
to
a
see it. We have a couple minutes, sure.
Yeah, I'll play that for you. This is just a few moments of a scene from the film that we shot few years ago with the film school. So let me share that screen again. Is that working?
Yeah, we still have the concert, you
All
in
right,
the studio.
here we go.
Okay.
This is just
Oh,
one
great.
scene
Great.
from Tachyon. It's called Tachyon.
Okay, people, by the way, are listening in on the radio. I should mention that you're seeing part of a short film from my second guest today's show, Talley. This show, I forgot to mention that, Talley. I should have mentioned that. Very cool. Let's get out of there and come back to you. And we're talking
That may
to...
have been too loud there at the end there and might have
No,
gone over
that
your
was
voice.
cool. But we're talking to Talley, and quite an interesting guy who's a filmmaker and also a musician, and among other things. The only thing, Talley, I'll have to ask you next time you come on the show, I want that first film as a 13-year-old or however old you were, I want you to dig it up.
No, you'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands.
Okay, but I assume though you're evolving as a filmmaker. Would you say that's true?
Oh, I better be. I'd better be. This story in particular has gotten better as I've gotten older, and I'm glad that I did not pursue it back then when I first made it. It's definitely maturing, and the screenplay is I think it's getting a lot better.
It's interesting. I don't know. Do you have Netflix? I assume, or do you have Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Yes. See, it reminds me of you a little bit. Tick Tick, Tick Tick Boom. Did you see it?
With Andrew Garfield, I saw an ad for it. I haven't watched it yet.
But you have to see it because it's so much describes you. You know, because this
cool.
guy who took this idea and took him 8 years to bring it to fruition. You know, and so
That's
your
encouraging.
point's an interesting one. That just because you have an idea for something, it doesn't get made right away. I assume.
That's right. That's right. In fact, it's especially with film, it's a miracle that any movie gets made.
Yeah, but this is just, you'll have to see it because it so much reminds me of you that he put this together and it took him 8 years, and then it didn't go anywhere. You know, it just but it was right before Rent, and then he came up with Rent, and then he died just before Rent was to be on.
Oh, okay. It's a true story. It's the guy who did Rent.
Right, true story.
I see. Cool.
Great show. But it reminds me a little bit of you, that it's just an evolving process and you just got to keep at it all the time. If folks want to find out more about Talley, what do they do?
You go to blaketalley.com, BLAKETALLEY. Most of my music is there right now. A great way to support me is Patreon, patreon.com/tallymusic, TALLEY music. Talley Music on Instagram, Talley Music on TikTok, which I'm just now getting on because I'm old. And Facebook. Talley is on Facebook as well. TALLEY.
Just on the last name is Talley, T-A.
Yeah, if you want to get right to the URL, it's facebook.com/Mr. Tallyman. I couldn't just get Talley Music, so Mr. Tallyman, like the old Harry Belafonte song.
Okay, and I'd like to thank you for being my guest, Talley, this second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. I look forward to seeing your work, and like I said, keep us in mind, because especially when we come out with those albums, I'd love to feature them, and we'll do a mini concert or something on the air here.
Cool, for sure.
Look forward to seeing you either in concert or in a movie, someday in stage as well. I'd like to thank also my guest, the first half hour, Andrew Lovice, also my producer, Amy Prisnash, and I look forward to having you join me next Wednesday here at 9 a.m. on WPVM 103.7 Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVMFM.org and watch on WPVM's Facebook page. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, Tally, but if you just stay on after we're done with recording here, you and I will wrap up. So speak to you soon. Thanks again.